All the Wesley children were educated at home under their mother's instruction, and her methods proved remarkably successful. In a letter sent long afterward to her son John, Susanna Wesley detailed her renowned approach to child rearing.
The children were always placed in a structured routine from birth in all things suitable to their age, such as dressing and undressing. The first 3 months generally passed in sleep. After that, they were, if possible, laid into their cradle awake and rocked to sleep, remaining so until it was time for them to wake. This method was used to establish regular sleeping patterns, which initially were 3 hours in the morning and 3 in the afternoon, then reduced to 2, until no naps were needed. By the age of 1, or sooner, they were taught to fear the rod and to cry softly, thus avoiding much correction and that dreadful noise of crying which was rarely heard in the house. The family usually lived in as much quietness as if no child were among them. As soon as they were reasonably strong, they were limited to 3 meals a day. At dinner, their small table and chairs were placed beside ours where they could be supervised. They were allowed to eat and drink as much as they wanted, but were not permitted to ask for anything. They were never allowed to choose their food, but were made to eat whatever was served to the family. At 6 o'clock, following family prayer, they had their supper. By 7, the maid bathed them, starting with the youngest, then undressed them, and got them all to bed by 8. They were left in their respective rooms awake, as it was not allowed in our house to sit by a child until it fell asleep. They were so accustomed to taking what was given them that if any of them were ill, there was no trouble in getting them to take unpleasant medicine. They dared not refuse it. They quickly learned that they could not have anything they cried for and were taught to ask politely for what they wanted. They were not permitted to ask even the lowest servant for anything without saying, "Please give me such a thing," and the servant was reproved if she allowed them to omit that word. There were several additional rules we observed which I believe to be useful. First, we noticed that fear of punishment often leads children to lie, eventually forming a habit that is difficult to break. To prevent this, a rule was made. If a child confessed a fault honestly and promised to amend, they would not be punished. This rule reduced lying considerably. Second, no sinful action, such as lying, stealing, playing at church or on the Lord's Day, disobedience or quarrelling, was ever allowed to go unpunished. Third, no child was to be scolded or beaten twice for the same fault, and if they amended, they would not be reproached for it afterward. If any child performed an act of obedience or did something to please, even if it was imperfectly done, the intention was kindly received and the child was gently guided on how to do better in the future. That promises be strictly observed and a gift once given be not taken back.
This intriguing document is as revealing of Mrs. Wesley's character as it is of the home she created. She was not only her children's teacher, but was uniquely suited to the role. At age 5, each child began formal instruction with her, and, except for 2, each learned the alphabet in a single day. Each lesson was repeated until mastered, exemplifying her remarkable perseverance. Her husband once complained about this painstaking method.
"I wonder at your patience. You have told that child the same thing 20 times.
Mrs. Wesley replied,
Had I stopped at 19, all my efforts would have been lost. The 20th time crowned the whole.
This wisdom, worthy of being etched in gold, underscores the difference between success and failure. What is worth achieving rarely comes without the 20th effort, yet the reward fully justifies each attempt that seemed wasted. Every mother should be ready to teach for the 20th time, instilling in her children the maxim that the 20th time crowns the whole. Persevere in doing right until it bears fruit, even if that takes 20 times 20, for such a commitment often creates a love for the work itself. Alongside education and morality, Mrs. Wesley took time for each child's spiritual needs. She wrote,
Each night, I take as much time as I can spare to talk with each child individually on matters of deepest importance. Monday is for Molly, Tuesday for Hetty, Wednesday for Nancy, Thursday for Jackie, Friday for Patty, Saturday for Charles, and Sunday for Amelia and Suki together.
Such consistent, diligent personal training explains the prominence of the Wesleys, though the